Good morning, YouTube. Oh, I'm here to talk to the Bruce Lee fanatics and give them some schooling. Everybody says Wong Jack Man injured Bruce Lee, broke Bruce Lee's back. That's a lie. It's a lie. Bruce Lee injured his back in 1969 during training. He was told that he would never do martial arts again. But some Bruce Lee fanatic made up this story about a fight that was never, ever proven against Bruce Lee and Wong Jack Man in 1969. It's false. It's fact. Bruce Lee hurt himself during training. The Jackman fight cover-up was to show that Bruce Lee wasn't superhuman as everybody thinks. Well, not everybody, but the fanatics. The Bruce Lee fanboys. The fact is, he hurt himself training. He hurt himself really bad training. And I don't know, somebody had the grand idea to say, Wong Jackman and Bruce Lee was involved in a fight and Wong Jackman broke Bruce Lee's back. Absolutely no evidence. The fanboys scream, oh, there's proof. This one said that. This one said that. It was a secret fight. It was a secret fight. If the fight was so goddamn secret, how the hell do you know about it? There was no fight. Bruce Lee basically just hurt himself training. And he hurt himself bad training. And another thing you fanboys don't know about Bruce Lee is that his films and his fight scenes in his movies were sped up to make him look faster. And that's a typical thing that's done in martial arts movies. They speed up the film to make the fight scene look more flashy and more faster. When you watch training videos of Bruce Lee and he's really fast, sometimes he is. He's really fast. No, not much technique. When you watch him hit a speed bag or a punching bag, he's got no pop in his punches. He's pushing that bag. Not much technique there. And anybody can be fast by themselves. But can you be that fast in an actual fight? We've never seen that. We will never know with Bruce Lee if he was actually that fast for real. Because nobody have seen Bruce Lee fight. Not one person. What's up, honey? Nobody have seen Bruce Lee fight in a real fight. We've only watched him do demonstrations. And I don't understand how he's gotten the title of one of the best martial arts fighters in the world. Bruce Lee has trained for 5 years under Ip Man. Only 5 years. He's never received a belt. He is not a black belt of any degree. He's never had one. He's never received one. Bruce Lee has trained fighters and then himself certified those fighters as black belts. How do you do that? That's like an unlicensed electrician training an electrician and then certifying him a licensed electrician. So you know what the problem is? There's too many bullshit stories about Bruce Lee floating around and too many gullible people believing those stories. It's just way too many, and most of them just don't make any sense. The problem is you guys get lost in what's real and what's fake and what's reality. The reality is Bruce Lee was flashy. Bruce Lee did impressive things. You see him use those nunchucks. You see him use that bow staff. You seen him jump up high and kick the ceiling. I got to tell you, there's millions of people that can do that. Even today, this is not something Bruce Lee started. You know? I mean, you guys talk like he's the only one that's ever done this and the only one that could ever do it. You know, I've seen videos of guys using the 1-inch punch, a useless piece of shit of a punch, really. I mean, when are you going to actually ever use a 1-inch punch in a goddamn fight? Like, I'm going to stand there and let you walk up to me and place my hand on you like this and go, you know, it's not going to happen. It looks impressive, but the fact is, it really isn't. And any person jumping up that high and kicking a ceiling, it's impressive, but it's a showpiece. It's nothing but a showpiece. That's all it is. It's for show, and it looks impressive. So the fanboys, they take this and they think it's real, like it's gonna work, like Bruce Lee's gonna fight 10 guys, like he does in the movies. No, I just gotta tell you people, wake up. That's not real. That's just film. It's just a movie. It's just a movie. Oh, Bruce Lee trained Chuck Norris. Bruce Lee actually trained... I had an argument with a guy that said Bruce Lee actually trained Elvis. The fact is, Elvis and Bruce Lee never met. Elvis wanted to meet Bruce Lee. But they both had such busy schedules in that time that they actually never, ever met. But these fanboys swear to God that they saw a video or they heard this or they saw that when there's nothing. I mean, they're making up false things just to make their point. And everybody says things, but nobody can show anything. So come on. We've got... How long ago? What, 50 years? It's been 50 years since Bruce Lee's passing, 45, 50 years. You're telling me you cannot produce one shred of anything of Bruce Lee actually fighting? And I'm not talking about stories about a movie extra challenging Bruce Lee to a fight and Bruce Lee kicking his ass. Can Bruce Lee beat the shit out of the average guy? Probably, if the guy's in his weight class. I mean, you know, you got this thing, like Bruce Lee was about 130 pounds. You're comparing him with guys that are fighting today that are super middleweights and heavyweights and telling me that Bruce Lee will knock him out in 3 seconds. Wake up. Wake up. You know, Bruce Lee was not... He was impressive to look at in movies, and the fact that they speeded up his fight scenes to make him look more impressive. But you guys don't understand that. You guys don't get it. And that's a common practice in martial arts movies, just so you know. That's what they do to make the movie look better. Because it does. It helps. It makes it look better. But it's not real. It's just not real. It's like 90% of the stories about Bruce Lee are fake. Bruce Lee trained hard? Yes, he seemed like he did. I mean, he trained so hard that he broke his fucking back. But Bruce Lee was Superman. No, we can't let people know he broke his back training. And he didn't break his back because somebody hit him or he was training with an actual professional fighter. He was just training, and I don't know, he did something and he actually injured his back so bad. And he didn't completely break his back. You know, when they show it in the movie, Wong Jackman kicks him in the back. I mean, they even added it to the movie. And people rolled with that. People rolled with it. Oh, that's what happened. No, that's not what happened. Bruce Lee hurt himself training. But Bruce Lee's Superman. How can Superman break his back? Oh, we gotta cover this. You know? Oh, there was a secret underground fight. It was secret. Come on. Come on. Come on. And you know what? And most of the comments that are coming are from people probably around my age, in their 40s, 50s. The young ones, the 21s and stuff, I don't even listen to them because they don't know. You know, they're thinking like fans and not with sense. When you think like a fan, you know, your guy becomes, you know, Superman. And there's no base reality to anything you're saying. It's just a bunch of shit you heard online and have never seen. You know, if I would understand more if you actually seen something. In 50 years, you got to see something. I want you people to think about something. All those martial artists in the Bruce Lee era, all of them were actual fighters with actual fight records, with proof that they fought. Bruce Lee is the only one. And you guys even make up excuses for that. Oh, Bruce Lee didn't compete because he didn't believe in rules. It's like you make anything up to cover up the fact that Bruce Lee was just not a real fighter. Could Bruce Lee kick the shit out of the average guy? Maybe. I mean, I know some average guys that never train, but they can naturally fight. I'd put an average middleweight against a professional Bruce Lee, and I'd bet my money on the average middleweight. The fact that Bruce Lee's about 130 pounds, and average middleweight can be anywhere from 175. Some of them are super middleweights, and they're like 180 pounds, like Chuck Norris was. The Chuck Norris is the biggest one. Bruce Lee trained Chuck Norris. Oh, come on, please. Like I said in my previous video, Chuck Norris was on the scene before Bruce Lee even came to this country. You know, Chuck Norris has been fighting since 1964. Bruce Lee became famous in 1966. No, actually 1970. That's when Bruce Lee showed up. His first movie, The Big Boss. That's what rose him to fame. Before that, he was a regular Chinese teenager who fought other kids in the streets of China, got into trouble, according to his bio, his real bio, not the fake one that, you know, you guys made up. And that just sounds like the kids in this country. And he took Kung Fu classes. And he only took, you know, you guys talk like Bruce Lee trained under Ip Man for 20 years. No, he didn't. He trained under Ip Man for 4 years. 4. And received no certification, black belt, nothing. Bruce Lee was a flashy guy. He looked good, you know, when he did his moves. He looked great using nunchucks. He looked good using that bow staff, jumping up, screaming that, what? That mean look. You know, before striking those eyes, when the camera used to focus in on his eyes. I mean, it was cool. It was a cool thing to watch, you know. I was a kid. Every Bruce Lee movie that came out in theaters, we went to see that movie, and we thought he was the baddest motherfucker ever. And then we grew up. You grow up, and you learn the truth. You know, and the truth is, Bruce Lee wasn't. Bruce Lee, I'm not saying Bruce Lee couldn't fight. I'm just saying Bruce Lee wasn't as incredible as you people turn him out to be. And he's never proven any of his skill. A million guys can use nunchucks and look impressive and then can't fight. I know a lot of guys in the hood that can take a pair of nunchucks and whip them around like Bruce Lee did, and even scream the way he did. And they can't fight. You fight these guys, you beat the shit out of them. You know? So, yeah. Just some fun little facts for you delusional Bruce Lee fans who don't know shit. You just don't know. You read anything and you spew it like it's fact. And the fact is, Bruce Lee was merely a movie star. And he trained people. And I don't know how he certified people when he himself wasn't certified. You know? It's like an instructor opening up a school and he's got no credentials. Bruce Lee had no credentials. He had no black belt. He had no belt. He had no belt at all. And You don't need a belt to be good, but Bruce Lee has never proven that he was good. Bruce Lee was the king of demonstrations and the king of martial arts movie in his era. To compare him to fighters, to real fighters, it's not fair and it's bullshit because, come on, let's be real. How can you suggest somebody's a great fighter when you never seen them actually fight? You only see them fight in movies and doing demonstrations. Never fought anyone of substance. And there's people who say, well, but he fought as a kid growing up. He was a street fighter. Bruce Lee was a street fighter. Most kids I know were street fighters. That's what we did. We were all members. Me and my friends were all members of the same boxing club. We all fought, we fought silver gloves. We fought golden gloves. Me, myself, I fought for years. You know what I'm saying? And it was fun. And it was a great skill to learn. And it's great because, you know you can defend yourself in a fist fight if you have to. And, but Bruce Lee has never shown a shred of evidence that he was, he's never fought anybody not of substance. All right, beating up a couple of stuntmen on his set that challenged him, that doesn't count. It just doesn't count. Not to compare him to these champions of today. People saying he'll beat up Tyson, he'll beat up John Jones, he would have beat the Gracies, come on, wake up. People wake up. That's not reality. My point is the Bruce Lee in the movies is not the Bruce Lee in real life. It just wasn't. There was a lot of things. Bruce Lee was very well taken care of, and he took advantage of whatever was given to him. And I'll be honest, if I was Bruce Lee, I would have done the same shit. Bruce Lee has cemented his legacy for eternity, even on all the false narratives about him. Hollywood did a good job with him, and he rolled with it, and he knew it. And again, I believe Bruce Lee didn't compete because he would have exposed himself to being the fraud that I say that he was. As far as being a fighter, he was a fraud. Just like all these, you ever watch these videos on YouTube where you got these Chinese masters, the no-touch knockouts, and they're incredible, and then they fight an MMA fighter, and the MMA fighter kicks the shit out of them. Beats the hell out of them in like 20 seconds. One punch, boom, he's down. I believe Bruce Lee didn't fight and I believe Bruce Lee wouldn't have dared fight any champions because they would have whipped Bruce Lee's ass. And then all the myth about Bruce Lee would have disappeared. It would have just disappeared. Bruce Lee was a smart guy. According to his real bio, Bruce Lee was a good businessman. He knew exactly what he's doing. He wasn't going to open himself up to getting an ass whipping live on a camera because then the Bruce Lee myth is gone. All that speed, all that supposed speed and power would have been bullshit and gone. So the excuse that, I don't fight because there's rules and fighting somebody, the intention is you're supposed to kill them. Bullshit. I say Bruce Lee didn't fight because he knew deep in his heart that the champions back then, people like Chuck Norris and all of them, would have whipped his ass, would have kicked his ass in actual combat. Because his technique was flawed. It was super flawed. I mean, even today, who the fuck is doing Jeet Kune Do or whatever the fuck that style was called? Nobody's doing that shit. That shit's not gonna work. Not in a real fight. You know what? A good street fighter would have kicked Bruce Lee's ass. A really good street fighter would have kicked Bruce Lee's ass. So, yeah. So, Bruce Lee covered his ass real good, and his handlers did a good job with him. They did a great job with him. They made a lot of money with him. He made a lot of money for himself, and he cemented a legacy, even though it's like 80% fake. It's cemented. A lot of gullible people believe a lot of ridiculous shit. You know, they got Bruce Lee beating up you know, the biggest stars in fight sports today, they got Bruce Lee beating them. Idiots saying that Bruce Lee would knock out Tyson in 5 seconds because Tyson's too big and bulky. It's like, what? It's like, what? Tyson would slap Bruce Lee and knock him out. Anyways, this is Eddie Berrios for the Bronx.